Welcome. Today we will be talking about your second project-based learning, which we refer to as PBL2. In your first PBL, it was all about globalization, which focused on English language arts and social studies, the humanities. The interviews you all shared were great. Thank you for your hard work. About PBL2, which is Gamma Gear. The project starts on May 4th and will end on May 22nd. In this project, we will focus on math and science, the STEMs. There will still be some reading and writing as is integrated throughout the project. These are important skills that we want to continue to use and grow. The project plan will look and feel the same as the first project. The title of this PBL is Gamma Gear, and the reason the project is called Gamma Gear is because we'll talk about the waves that make up the electromagnetic spectrum, which are commonly referred to as gamma rays. The project starts with the challenge brief, and the challenge brief gives you some background information on what you're about to be learning and how it connects to the real world. It gives you the why and sets the purpose and the reason for your work. The driving question is introduced in the challenge brief. This project is all about how you as young, innovative learners can be empowered to protect people and the environment. So the driving question asks, how can you protect people and environment from the harmful effects of the electromagnetic spectrum? Remember the title as you're working through the project and answering the driving question. The project requirements also help to break down what you need to do to answer the driving question. The first requirement is to complete a pictorial diagram. We will discuss the diagram more as we talk about the actual assignment shortly. The second project requirement is to create a prototype brief for your product. You might be familiar with prototypes and even briefs themselves from your CTE pathway classes. You will have prompts to help you complete that brief, and we'll talk more about that when we get to that assignment. Remember that project title? Well, the gear in Gamma Gear refers to the product that you will present that will help to protect. You have the choice of the gear that you design if you want it to help people and or the environment. Your gear or your product does not have to be specific to gear. You can do a product that protects plants from harmful effects of the electromagnetic spectrum. So just think about it. Also know that the product can be something that you create on your own, or it can be a product that already exists, and you can adapt it to make it your own. The last thing you will have to do is to design an infomercial pitch about your product. There are some examples and some how-tos about infomercials within the assignment. It does not say here in the project requirements, but you will have to record your infomercial pitch and share that recording in Schoology. The reason it doesn't say it here is because the focus is on the infomercial pitch itself. We're not focused on your presentation skills, so please don't stress about the presentation itself. Just make sure that your video or audio recording is clear and that we can hear the details about your product and understand the explanation of how your product protects against harmful effects of the electromagnetic spectrum. You will notice next are some icons that will appear within your project-based learning plan. These are built-in supports that you may or may not need, but can definitely utilize whenever you need them as you're learning and working from home. With the first icon, you can read the assignments in Spanish. So if you click here, you'll actually access that document. You can also share this with your parents so they can share in what you're learning, and it will help them if they are supporting or helping you. Let's go back to take a look at the next icon. If you click here, this will actually take you to the audio and text support for whatever section you're in. This tool will take you to this document, and you'll see the highlighting sections. These are some more challenging words or phrases. If you click the highlighted parts, it will actually take you to the audio of the word, along with rewording that might be easier to understand. These vocabulary with audio supports can help you break down the reading throughout the project plan. So if you're having trouble understanding, or if it's just not flowing well for you, you can read it and click the icon and look at the easier or simplified text. Let's take a look at that final icon. The final icon that's available to you is the challenge brief itself. It will be whatever section, of course, that you're in when you're reading, but it will always have additional vocabulary supports. This will be the text for whatever section you're in, and when you click on it, it'll take you to a document just like this. When it comes up, it will pull out some of the words that you might be thinking to yourself, what does that mean? Or I'm not sure what that word means or how it's being used. And you can find the definition over if you look to the right-hand side. As you're learning and working from home, you're becoming more independent and autonomous. So find these supports and resources that work best for you and be empowered to use them. If we go back to the project plan, the next thing that you'll see is our empowered learning model image. The work that you're going to engage in through this 3-week project-based learning knowledge plan follows this model. You'll start the model with the Ignite phase, and that phase really connects you to what you're learning. Hopefully it interests you and draws you in. The next phase is actually the Discover and Connect. With the Discover and Connect piece, this is where your learning from the project takes place. So you'll usually read an article or information, you'll be doing activities, and then in the next section, you'll be, well, in this section as well, you'll be applying what you're working on. The Apply section is next, and those assignments take the project plan, the standards, and the ideas and brings them all together. You're going to apply your learning in a unique and different way in this section. For this Gamma Gear project, you will design something or adapt something to become your own. So you'll be taking the knowledge that you're applying to the design of what you're creating or crafting, making it something that you can call your own. After the Apply phase, you will then finish your project in the Reflect and Adapt. You are reflecting in this phase. Although there are no required assignments that are due in this phase of the learning model, it's important that you as a learner pause and think about what you did during your learning, what you liked during your learning, what would you like to learn more about, what went well in the project, and what didn't go so well, and what would you like to do differently in your next project-based learning experience. As you prepare for college, a career, the military, or life in the workforce, this is the type of thinking that will help you be successful, connecting to your background knowledge, researching, creating, designing, reflecting, comparing and contrasting on your own self, what you knew before and after the project, and thinking about how you're learning or how you learned and what you might want to learn next time. Again, you'll be going through these 4 phases of the Empower Learning Model as pictured here. If you scroll down past the Empowered Learning Model image, you'll see a link. If you click here, these are the math and science standards, which are from our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, which you'll be focusing on during this project. You can see that there are 2 math standards and a science standard as well. There's social emotional competency, ELPS, technology, and CTE standards also. Those standards are the ones that you might remember from the objectives that were posted in class. If you remember them changing in the agenda or into more user-friendly terms that actually told you about what you would be doing in class, that's actually what you're going to find in the rubric. So if we go to the rubric, you see how those standards connect directly to what you're working on in the project. You should notice the assignments are referenced by name, and the wording from the standard is also used to show how the learning and the work connect. The part that you really want to make sure that you are hitting is the meeting expectations. The reason you want to make sure that you're hitting that is because that's how you are connecting to meeting the expectations for what we would call the 11th grade level work. So this is how we justify the work that you're doing. This is how we connect it to a junior level learning in a STEM course. So just like in class, you should strive to be the best that you can and to put your best forward. Make sure you show your best work effort. So definitely look at what is exceeding expectations. And if you want to get a 90 or a 100, you definitely want to look toward the exceeding expectations. So that's what we would consider the project overview. But let's move on and actually start looking at some of the assignments within the project. And to do that, we're going to look at the project schedule. So we're looking at the project schedule and we'll talk about those assignments, but we're going to actually look at the assignments in detail as we go throughout the empowered learning sections. Although your actual project requirements are here, you definitely want to scroll down to those learning phases or phases within the learning model, because that's where you're going to find the read information, the articles, the resources, and the instructions that will actually really help you do your best on those assignments. Before we leave this project schedule section and move into those learning phases, I do want to show you a few links here in the resources. They link to helpful documents, especially if you look here where it says assignments, notice that it's blue and it's underlined. That's an actual link. And it actually takes you to, and you may have seen this, but it's just a how to help as far as submitting the assignments into Schoology. So depending on where you are, if you're on the web, if you're submitting from within the assignment, you can import your link. If you're on a Chromebook or if you're on your cell phone, whether it's Android or Apple, these are some directions that will help you actually submit and turn in your work into Schoology. So that's definitely important, an important link that you want to use. Now, in the left column, these are the focus for the assignments for each day. There are no link resources here. This column, as well as the next column that shows you your due dates, is really just for your reference. Now, if you look at the column to your far right, it says resources. So that column to your far right will actually have your assignments. These are links that will actually take you to the documents that give you more information. It's your actual assignments. So you do want to click those, and each one of those should force you to make a copy that you can then edit and upload to turn into Schoology. Remember, when you're forced to make a copy, I'll actually show you what that looks like. You see that? So when you're forced to make a copy, you should see a notice like this on the screen. And don't worry, that's exactly what you want. This will allow you to make a document that's all your own. You don't need to go in to request access because, again, this document is yours. You can actually find it in your own Google Drive. Now, when you do make that document and you make a copy, don't forget to go in and update your share settings. And I'll actually show you how to do that when we get into one of the first assignments there. But I just want you to remember that when you're forced to make that copy, no worries, that's what you're supposed to be doing. And then you can just make sure to share the settings because the document is now yours. So let's go back into the project schedule. So you'll see the assignments that you're going to be doing for this particular project. You'll be looking at a daily schedule. You'll be completing your project plan, doing a pictorial diagram, a research guide, a prototype brief, an infomercial pitch. And then you'll see that on May 18th, there's actually some resources to help you with your infomercial. Notice that those don't say submit, so those are just resources to help you with the actual assignment, which is the pitch itself that you will be making a copy of and submitting into Schoology. And then once you finish your infomercial pitch, you will be recording it and then submitting that recording into Schoology, okay? So the extensions for this project, there are two. And the first one is to investigate other companies that have designed products that protect like your product does. So some products you'll find might protect from the environment and some might protect people and then some might protect both. And actually within the extension is a link that will take you to the IQS directory for those companies and manufacturers. Of course, it's just a directory. You have to click on each one to go to their website to see what actual products they have created, okay? This is a good link to save as you start your work because you can reference it or refer to these companies and manufacturers and their products a little bit later. But don't worry, I'll remind you again. The second extension for this project is actually a virtual tour. There are discussion questions that you can think about as you take your virtual tour, but to click here will actually lead you into the virtual tour, and those discussion questions are right below. And that is your project schedule. So let's move into the empowered learning sections of the project. The project-based learning plan begins with Ignite. In Ignite, you will be inspired to engage in critical thinking and problem solving through relevant, authentic, and meaningful experiences. The Ignite section here focuses on connecting the electromagnetic spectrum and how you can see those waves in the real world all around you. The video that actually starts for you to watch in this section. Let's see. There we go. Awesome. So we have to wait until we get through the advertisement. But the video revisits the electromagnetic spectrum and its properties. But again, it's focused also on the applications and everyday uses of the electromagnetic spectrum, both good and bad. Along with the video, you'll find some think about or discuss questions. You definitely want to think about these questions as you're watching the video, and you're welcome to think about and discuss them with your classmates or your family. You can go to your teacher's office hours to discuss them with your teacher as well. If, as you're watching the video, you run into technical difficulties or you just need some help understanding what they're saying or reviewing what they're saying, there's also full scripts available to you. And the full scripts are both in English and Spanish. And you can access the Spanish version from there in the actual project plan, or if you go into the English version and you want to see it in Spanish, you can get to it from there as well. And once you open that document, it will take you to the Spanish version of the transcript. And so you can follow along or just read it, like I said, if you experience any technical difficulties. All righty. And any of those Spanish supports can also be noted with this icon. And even if it's not there, remember that you still do have access to those supports through the 3 icons that you'll see in just a moment here, okay? And don't forget about those as well. So when you get into the read section here, you're going to read all about the electromagnetic waves. Again, how you see them in our everyday world. This is where you're introduced to that gamma rays term. And you talk about some of the properties of the electromagnetic waves. And there's an essential question that you can think about as well. We go into more of the applications. So these are some more good and bads of the electromagnetic waves from the electromagnetic spectrum. And then, as I said, don't forget about those supports that you have through the icons here. The Ignite assignments are the project plan, and this is important. You do want to do this project plan. And you'll see that it's forcing you to make a copy. That's a good thing. I click make a copy, and now I have my own document. But it's important to use this project plan because it helps you map out your work. How you're going to complete the assignments and the tasks within the project so that you get from the beginning to the end, the entire 3 weeks you can plan out here. What's also important is the reflection piece. You get to think about your work in PBL1, reflect on it so that you know what you want to do differently or better in this particular project, okay? The next assignment for the Ignite assignments is the pictorial diagram. And so when you click on the pictorial diagram, it actually takes you to a Google slideshow. And it'll force you to make a copy. So once you do, the slideshow will be yours. And that's what you want because you're going to be making edits to the slideshow. So when you turn it in, you want to make sure that it's just your edits that are there. Okay. The slideshow starts with directions. And so you'll see those directions here. And for this assignment, remember, you're going to be identifying harmful effects for specifically the infrared, ultraviolet, and the X-ray waves on the spectrum. So you can use what you learned from the video or the read section, or you can do your own additional research from the World Wide Web. But you'll be using that research to help you complete the actual activity on slide 2. And so you see you'll be clicking here to add your the harmful effects that you've noted for the infrared, ultraviolet, and then the X-rays. The illustration here, the actual diagram, hopefully helps you even more in a visual way to see what the electromagnetic spectrum is and how you can actually see it in your everyday life. The last slide is just a reminder that when you're making these copies, it's forcing you to make a copy. So like I said, it becomes your own document, but you don't want to forget to change the shared settings. And I can show you really quickly how to do that. So you go up to the top right and you say shared. And you do want to go down to the advanced options because you want to change this to anyone with the link. And you want to make sure that anyone with the link can view. Okay. And then once you have that setting, you save it and you're good to go. Okay. So those are the 2 assignments for the Ignite section. So we'll move into the Discover and Connect phase. And in Discover and Connect, you'll build and apply background knowledge through these individual and collaborative explorations. This is rigorous academic content that's going to be in the Discover and Connect. So make sure you have your thinking cap on and you're utilizing the resources. And one of the first resources that's available in this section is to watch this video. And I'll click it so we can take a look at it. But this video is actually by meteorologist Claire Nasir. She talks about the dangers of ultraviolet waves, which, yes, she talks about the overexposure and ways to protect yourself. And that's further discussed and explored once you go into the read article that's here for you. And it talks about how to protect yourself as well. And so you definitely want to make sure to go over to the left and look at each of those categories because they break it up into the different waves here. And so you can click on it to look at each one, okay? Moving back into the project plan, in this section, we're starting to look at product design because you'll actually be moving into the design phase or preparing for the design of your project. So you definitely want to read about product design here. We also have for you some characteristics of a good design as written by Dieter Rams. And he is actually a world-renowned product designer and he works for Braun. And then after that, this is a really, really important read section because it talks about the mathematical ideas that you're going to be communicating through your financial graphs. And we'll talk about those graphs in just a second when we look at the second assignment, but you'll need to really remember that you have this available to you in this read section because it also has 15 examples of those graphs that you might want to use or even just to use as you create your own, okay? The Discover and Connect assignments, though, the first one is the research guide. And remember, when you click on that, that's going to force you to make that copy. And so you'll see for the research guide, it starts with the research information. And so this is just yet more information on both positives and negatives of the waves that exist around us from the electromagnetic spectrum. But after you read through that research that's been provided for you, you'll actually move into the second page. And that second page is actually taking you into the questions that are going to help guide your research. see. So the first question is all about identifying. So you have to actually identify the harmful effect that your product is going to protect against. And then you want to start looking at questions 2 and 3, which start to talk about the actual design of the product. So it has you think about your end users and also your research that you're going to conduct to look at your products if you're going to be adapting or repurposing a product. Remember, I mentioned saving that IQS directory, this one here. This is definitely a place where it can come in handy because you'll need to, for the second question, talk about a product that might already exist. I'm sorry, for the third question, you'll talk about a product that already exists and how you can adapt or repurpose it for your own. Now, if you're creating your own, you can just talk about one of the products that you might find on that list or in your own research and then share your explanation there, but you don't have to use that if you choose to use a product or design a product of your own, okay? So if we go back into the project, you'll see the second assignment for the Discover and Connect phase is actually the prototype brief. I'm gonna pull that up here. And so what you'll see is in the prototype brief, this is where you're actually going to be talking about your product, either the one that you create or repurpose or adapt. But you'll see that each of the things that you'll be doing is describing and explaining your product, but this is also where you're going to do that market comparison. And you'll be justifying here as well and creating a visual representation of your prototype. So there are some question prompts that follow that can help you finish up or complete the product brief. And we'll look into the parts. So the first part is part 1, which is all about your product. And part 2 is that market comparison. Remember, again, that extension activity where you had to use the list, the IQS directory. Well, this is an abbreviated version of that. So you actually will choose a product and you'll compare and contrast it to your own. So you definitely want to choose a different product if you're repurposing or adapting one. And if you're creating one of your own, then you can definitely refer back to that IQS directory. There's also a link here to some visualization tools. And so as you're creating your own cost history graph and you're talking about your price point entry here, if you choose to do those graphs digitally, here's some sample tools for you. And then don't forget that read section that talks about the financial graphs and actually gives you 15 other examples. Okay. And then for part 3, you're going to move into justifying your product. And so this is actually a bit of a self-reflection here. And so this is after you finish communicating your cost project, your cost history graphs and your price point information, you'll move into this section. So what I do want to make sure to point out is that there is no requirement for how effective your product is. So please be honest with yourself when you think about this section or as you complete this section. Think about how well does your product actually protect against those harmful effects. So as you rate the effectiveness, consider if it's just a little, think about what you might be able to tweak in your design to move it to somewhat. But do not forget that it does not have to be the best protecting gear. It can just be a little, and if it is, that is okay. It still helps people and the environment. And if it's almost completely, then that's outstanding. You might even consider getting in touch with one of the companies from the IQS directory to share your design. The last thing that you're going to do for your prototype brief is you'll actually be sharing the visual of your design. So you can print this page and then sketch your design here and then take a photo and upload it. Or you can type, you can find an online photo of a product and type over it. And then if you're in the CTE design pathways or if you're familiar with some of the platforms that they use, you're more than welcome to use those or any other online digital creating visual drawing tools, if you will. Okay, so we're going to move back to the project plan and we're actually moving into the apply section. So as we progress into the apply phase, this is where you'll get the experience of applying critical thinking skills that will empower you to practice, analyze, create, and synthesize the objective or the challenge here. The video from this section is actually by David Wood, and it's one of my favorites. And so David continues to talk about the technical applications of the electromagnetic waves. And so just more applications about where you can find these waves, what they are, how they travel, how you see them in your everyday world, in your everyday life, and how they impact, different people or different things along the way. So you definitely want to think about or discuss, the questions that accompany this video. There are some what might be quite surprising statistics, to think about and discuss in this apply section. And then as you move into the reading, you can see that we're talking about the implications health-wise of the electromagnetic spectrum. And then it talks about should you be worried? So you can definitely read this article and think about this essential question. As you create your commercial product, how will it fight against, radiation or whatever harmful effect that you've identified? When you move into the apply section, you'll also be writing your commercial pitch. And so there are some resources here for that. There are some critical steps. And we'll click on this. You can take a look at this. This is actually from an infomercial consulting firm. And they share the steps on writing an infomercial script. You can write your own script. Be sure to focus on the 3 segments so that they mention here in this article. And you may even consider starting with an outline. It's not mandatory. You don't have to do an outline for your script. All that you're turning in is the final infomercial script that you'll be using as you record. But some writers have definitely said that writing an outline helps them, before they actually start their writing. So remember that you can use that outline if you choose, but then also don't forget about these supports that are available to you as you work through the apply section. And then let's actually take a look at those apply assignments. So that first one is the infomercial pitch. So the script that you'll be using as you record your infomercial, right? As you plan for the recording of the infomercial. And then remember, don't forget those 3 segments. You definitely want to include those as you write your script. And you have some boxes here to write your script in. If you need more space, please just push enter once you get to the end of it, and it'll take you to the next page and you can continue writing there. Once you finish that infomercial pitch, you want to actually submit it into Schoology. And don't forget to change your share settings. But as you're working on that infomercial pitch script, definitely utilize the resources that are here. And we talked about those early on. They don't have a submit next to them, so they are really just to help you as you complete that activity. There is a infomercials 101 that talks about, the different parts, how the infomercials work. And then there's also a how to pitch guide. And this can definitely be a useful tool as you're writing your script out, and then even when you start to record. Just some things to remember when you're designing and delivering your pitch. Okay. And then the last assignment in the apply is, again, to record. And so you'll be doing your recording, and you can use any recording method that you like. Here are some examples, but they are just that, examples that you can choose from. You're more than welcome to use whatever platform you'd like. But don't forget that it can be a video recording that you can do with your cell phones, or it can just be a voice memo recording. But do not forget that the important thing is not the presentation or the presentation method or the recording method that you choose, but it's all about the information that you're sharing. Okay, so not how you're sharing it, but what you're sharing. And then if you do choose to use Instagram or Twitter, don't forget to use those hashtags so that we can quickly get to your videos that you're going to share. And if you're using one of the other options, just copy and paste your links into Schoology directly. Okay. Then we move into the final phase here, and it's actually the reflect and adapt phase, where you'll have the opportunity to critique the product, the process, refine progress towards your learning, celebrate growth, and make improvements. This is information that you will read and reflect on. So you'll see in the reading section, you'll read, but then you'll also reflect on that reading. There is a great TED Talk video here that introduces this section. And you can watch that and then use those, think about or discuss questions, as you reflect. There it is. All right. And James Smith actually does a really great job in this video. So definitely take some time to listen to what he has to share. And then think about how that impacts you, yourself, your own learning. Relate, how you can relate. Okay. And then, of course, you have the project reflection chart that we want you to think about and complete. And then there are some resources here. You can journal. And then there's also some JSON learning resources that are included as well. Toward the end of the project or at the end of the project plan, you'll also find some additional supports here. And there are some supports that will help you in your learning. And some of those you can actually, may have been used in some of the icons from above. You'll see those here on the Rewordify, for example, but that snap and read, can definitely help you as you're learning. And then there are some supports that will also help you as far as language goes, some accommodations, some support links, and some other resources that are available to you too. And then please don't forget to scroll down and take a look at the advanced thinking questions that are here as well. Well, this wraps up your project-based learning plan for PBL2 Gamma Gear. We look forward to seeing your designs and your infomercials uploaded into Schoology. Please feel free to reach out anytime and watch the video to review any sections or information. Bookmark it for easy access. Be safe and definitely take care.